Hey there. This week we're going to discuss a few things, including establishing a trade criteria and creating a watch list. First thing I want to touch on is make sure that you're comfortable when you're trading, because there's a huge psychological role that is included when trading. And if you're uncomfortable in a polo, as I am, perfect. If you're comfortable in a suit, do the suit thing. But the most important thing is be comfortable so that you can start the day off with the right psychological vibe. Psychology plays a huge role in trading. Don't underestimate it. So let's talk about establishing trade criteria first. This is pretty simple, but it's very, very important as far as being a successful trader. Some of the trade criteria that I go off of is average daily volume. I just want to make sure that the average daily volume of the stock is at least 1 million shares, preferably more than 1 million shares. I tend to actually trade stocks that trade 5 million plus shares a day, but at least 1 million plus shares, or I just ignore the stock. The reason for that is I want to ensure liquidity. Ensuring liquidity simply means that it's going to give you ease of entry and exit. So sometimes it might be easy to get into a stock, but then when you want to exit, you can't get a fill on it because there's no liquidity. The reason there's no liquidity is because there's no volume, which in turn means that nobody's trading the stock. So how are you going to sell a stock that nobody wants to trade? So you want to make sure that you have at least 1 million shares of plus of the average daily volume, so that you ensure liquidity, so that you can get out of the position when you want to. It's that easy. The other thing I like to practice basically is minimum share price for the stocks that I'm personally trading. Now I like to stay above $5 per share. The reason for this is because I like to trade quality companies with quality market capitalizations. Stocks that have a share price below $5, in my mind, are pretty much penny stocks. I know they're not technically penny stocks, but I don't look at them as extremely valid companies. Now, you have the cases where we've got Citigroup trading at like $3 a share right now. But, all in all, I typically avoid stocks that are below $5 a share. That doesn't mean that I never trade a stock below $5 a share. I just tend to avoid, or I'm very skeptical of a stock if it's below that $5 price point. So keep that in mind when you're trading. Keep this trade criteria in mind at all times, because it's extremely important in becoming a successful trader. Now the next thing I want to touch on is creating a watch list. And this is more for you day traders out there, but it can also be applied to individuals that swing trade, or like to do some fairly active options or futures trading. In the morning, I always I start my day off at least 30 minutes before the opening bell, going through the news and seeing some stocks that may have some good activity the prior day, running through some charts, looking at some stocks that have some promising price action into the close, whether it be upside price action or downside price action. I also like to look at the news, read through Bloomberg.com, Drudge Report. I like to check out the feeds on StockTwits and MyTrade.com to see where there's some stocks that people are really talking about, whether it be some sort of buyout information or maybe an IPO or something like that. I don't know, but I just kind of look around and I look for stocks that spark my interest, that other people are talking about, or a story that's involving that stock that I think may fuel some interest in that stock that day. So what I do is in the morning I'll create a watch list, and that morning watch list is going to be comprised of long and short. And what I mean by that is long, stocks that I'm interested in possibly buying at or after the open, and short, stocks that I'm potentially interested in shorting or short selling at the open or after the open during the morning session. So let's say, for example, iPhone's getting all kind of attention these days. I could throw Apple on my long watch list. It broke new all-time highs. They're probably going to see some follow-through. There's some companies that may tag along with it, are Broadcom, Qualcomm, and SanDisk. So maybe I'll just throw those up on the long list, and maybe I'll take a look at a few stocks like Citi on the short. The financials are getting hit. We've got some issues. BP could be a good short candidate. RIG, some different stocks, within similar sectors, but I'm just basically trying to give you an example here. So you go through the news, create a long list and a short list. Throughout the morning session, you continually check both of these lists. Now let's say, for example, Broadcom has a decent opening but then just starts to tank off. You want to scratch that off of your long list, and you continue modifying it all throughout the morning. And let's also say that BP gets some positive news as far as capping their well leak. Well, you want to scratch that off your short list because the stock's now it's starting to tank up, or starting to get some nice buy side interest. So obviously you don't want to have it on your short list. You want to keep stocks that are relatively weak in comparison to the overall market on your short list, and stocks that are relatively strong to the overall market on your long list. Now we'll discuss relative weakness and relative strength more in depth here in the next, I think it's week 4, week 5. But just keep that in mind. So you continually modify it throughout the morning. I suggest having about 20 stocks on your long side, 20 stocks on your short side, so that you have a good lead base that you can modify throughout the morning session. So you come into the afternoon session. You've got your long list that you've carried over from the morning. You've got your short list. But there also may be some of these stocks that you don't necessarily want to scratch off the long side or the short side, and you just want to kind of put in a neutral list because they're not going up or down, they're just kind of hanging out. So keep that neutral list. And what I like to do on this neutral list is, let's say we took Qualcomm and moved it into the neutral list. And let's say we took CAM from the short list and moved it into the neutral list. I would put QCOM, and I just like to put an L in parentheses next to it to let me know that it was referenced prior in my long list, so that I had a long side bias going into the day. And I'd put CAM with an S, just to let me know that I referenced it on my short list at the beginning of the day, and I had a short side bias at the beginning of the day. Also, another important thing to remember is you can add completely new stocks. You don't have to just stick with the stocks that you had put in the morning. So I tend to stay pretty strict to the list that I create in the morning, 20 long, 20 short, and modify and put in the neutral column. But then I start adding right before the New York lunch hour ends, right around 12:45, 1:15 range. So I'll carry over my longs. I'll put the neutrals in the neutral column. I'll carry over the shorts. I'll keep off anything that I've scratched out throughout the day, and any notes that I've made of other opportunities I'll add to my long or short list respectively. So I mean, it's that simple. You got to create a watch list. It gives you a consistent, basically list of leads for you to look at throughout the day, whether you're day trading, futures, options, equities, or just looking for some short-term swing opportunities or some short-term option spread opportunities. It's going to provide you with a great list of leads, because trust me, you're not going to sit there and remember everything that you saw and every opportunity that you saw throughout the day as you were looking. So I just want to take you to the computer and we'll recap. So we'll see you there. So let's recap what we just discussed. First, you want to make sure that you're comfortable, because psychology plays a huge role in trading, and just being comfortable with what you're wearing, really. I mean, it might sound simple, but hey, it helps. Every little bit helps. Create trade criteria with focus on average daily volume minimum, which we discussed 1 million shares per day traded as the minimum that I use. And, I prefer 5 million plus, really, average daily volume. And minimum stock price, which in my case is $5 typically, and I will trade below $5, but I tend to stay away. And lastly, create long, short, and neutral watch list. Create your morning watch list, modify it throughout the morning session, and then create your afternoon watch list with the modifications, the subtractions, the additions, and the neutral column in the afternoon. So for week 2 homework, I would like you to identify 30 stocks that meet our trade criteria: the minimum average daily volume of 1 million plus and over $5 per share on share price. So find 30 stocks that meet that trade criteria, place these stocks on your daily watch list,
and put them in long or short column based on the opening price. So if you have a strong opening, put them in the long column. If you have a weak opening, put them in the short column. And as the day goes on, modify your watch list into the New York lunch hour, and then after the New York lunch hour, have your newly modified afternoon watch list to kind of watch and keep checking these stocks out as you modify, and you'll notice that you'll keep better track of these specific stocks, and you'll just have a better feel for the market that day. So this week, I'm asking you to read and retain the next set of 20 ticker terms, because that's going to play an important role on your overall educational experience here. And we want to make sure that we're building up as much of a good educational base as possible going into these more advanced videos as the weeks progress. So, with that said, everyone have yourselves a great week. Good luck with your homework, and I'll see you next week.